Marilyn. I'm Marilyn Chircop. I am Maltese, so not many of us. And basically, I've been in the retail world for as long as I can remember, over 20 years now.
Your degree doesn't have to automatically define what you do. Like it gives you a lot of experience, but from there itself you have like a million other options you can explore. So yeah, that's just kind of what I wanted to take. And a brief introduction about yourself.
Hi, I'm Marilyn. Marilyn Chircop. I am Maltese, so not many of us. And basically, I've been in the retail world for as long as I can remember, over 20 years now.
Yes. You work as a visual merchandiser. Could you give a brief talk about what a visual merchandiser is? For, let's say, a 5-year-old to understand.
Okay, cool. So a visual merchandiser from a 5-year-old perspective is making the store pretty, but it takes more than that. So basically, we are the last people who touch the product before it goes on the floor. So basically you receive any kind of merchandise, whether it's shoes, bags, clothes, home product, whatever it is. And then the visual merchandiser's role is actually to plan where it goes, to display it in a theme, to make a customer journey more experiential and more commercial. And basically we are the art curators behind the shop floor.
Now, I'd really love for you to talk to us about your journey from your education to your professional career right now. If you could talk to us about that.
Yeah, sure. So basically, I've been to London Chamber of Commerce for university, and I finished my business administration diploma course, and also have a background in marketing. However, the story about visual merchandising started actually in a very peculiar way. I was working a part-time job as a sales assistant to also make enough money to pay for my education. And I always found myself, playing with things and trying to put things together and in a more of a story. And I really, really enjoyed it. So one of my managers actually gave me the opportunity, and she was like, "Oh, I think you should go into visual merchandising." I was like, what is that again? So she taught me about it, and I really enjoyed this new art form of actually putting things together, and then you link sell. And then I was noticing that the customer wouldn't just buy the earrings, they would buy the necklace as well, and it encouraged me to even do more. So this is all happening whilst I'm studying, and I was like, oh, hold on a second, I just wanted to go into management. This wasn't my plan, but I really, really enjoyed it. And then when I graduated, the same company gave me an opportunity to become a shop manager. And of course, at that point in time, you also oversee the visual merchandising. And then I just started from there. And then I decided that I wouldn't remain in the sales side, and I really wanted to explore a full-time visual merchandising role. And it hit off from there. I worked for a couple of European brands, and then I decided to leave my home country. And I've also then took a bigger role in Cyprus, and then I also had the opportunity to work with international teams, and I really started getting more exposure within London and within other countries in Europe. And then I landed in Dubai. So, and then the story continues.
Could you tell us how did your education play with your job? Like, do you think that if you hadn't taken that education, you'd still find yourself where you are, or like, do you think what you had learned had a direct impact in the work that you do today?
I think the marketing side definitely helps, because of course, from the marketing side, you're still promoting a product, you're talking about the product, you're building CRMs, you're building CSRs. So, even at such a young age, when I didn't have so much exposure and I was still, just purely playing with product, you still have that mindset, that commercial mindset, and how is the customer going to read the product, and are we going to talk about it? And I mean, at the time, Instagram and so on wasn't so famous as yet, but it was quite a hit on social media anyway. You still had, other apps and other things where you could communicate. So there was always that mindset, and how do you shoot a campaign, and what am I going to style the mannequins in? So that definitely helped. I feel that the managerial part of it started playing a key role only when I started getting into actual managerial jobs. So anything, from budgeting, financial planning, managing a team, that came at a later stage. So I still feel that what I have studied had an impact, but I feel that it came in stages. And also, I always say, visual merchandising is actually not just a skill, it's also part of a personality. It's part of a characteristic that you have, right? So, if you wanted to become a visual merchandiser tomorrow, I could probably just train you, right? I will just give you a set of guidelines, explain the product, explain the brand, and just, show you how it's done. However, the passion, the art for detail, the how you can see a vision, how you can put a story together. I think these are all characteristics within that someone cannot teach you. So I think for me to land where I am today, yes, of course, education will always play a key part. Wherever you go, whatever you do, I think it's very good to have a good education background, because it is not just what you learn at school. You learn motor skills, you learn social skills, you network, because this is the first networking skill that we do get, and actually with our colleagues and with our actually students at that time, but also through part-time jobs or through the parents of my best friend or so on and so forth. And this is how you start actually exposing yourself, and how you start building your character, and how you start facing challenges. And so the schooling part is not really exactly what you're just reading and learning. It's also a part of a behavior, right? That at the end of the day, when you are in a workforce, you're going to apply those behaviors. You will know how to face those challenges. You will know how to socialize, how to build your network, how you make new friends, or and it just keeps on building from there. So I think definitely an impact.
Yeah, I think like at least the message that I wanted to ask you as well is like, your degree doesn't have to automatically define what you do. Like it gives you a lot of experience, but from there itself you have like a million other options you can explore. So yeah, that's just kind of what I wanted to take, and that's one of the reasons why I absolutely love like the work that you do, because you don't get a course like that in general. No one thinks about, like I want to be a visual merchandiser, but it is still, as you said, an incredibly fun job to do, and it comes through the line of marketing. It comes through the line of mass communication, and I think a lot of people, at least a lot of students, have this sort of mindset. It's like, if I study this, then I have to do this particularly, not knowing that there's
I completely agree with you. I don't think that I was even studying to become a speech therapist in my day. That's why I studied sciences, and then you end up in management, and then you end up in visual merchandising and traveling half of the world. So I just think that it's always good to somehow have a plan. So it's like, at least I know what I'm going to study, and I'm going to do it for my benefit, because this is something I enjoy to learn about and I enjoy to do. But in terms of actually associating where you're going to end up to where you're studied, I think unless studying is really mandatory for a profession to get there, I think it's just, a door of a world of opportunities, actually, and you can really go out there and discover, because education, what it brings is your first stages of adult life. So then how you apply it is completely up to you, right?
Yes, absolutely. Now, you had briefly mentioned about how going to university helps in networking. And that's a huge topic, and here at Pupilar, we try our best to encourage people to network, because we talk to them about how important it is. Could you talk to us about how networking through your college years, through after your college years, how it helped you to get to where you are?
For sure. I think for me, I am where I am today purely because of networking, and purely because I always have shown so much passion and determination and hunger to grow and to do what I really wanted to do. That networking actually got me there. So, as I said before, I come from a very small island. So, meeting people and getting exposure and getting trainings. And I was very fortunate to attend trainings abroad, and then making more contacts, and then always, and this is not only just only contacts to actually land a job. This is the purely context about, finding a new challenge and brainstorming an idea, or having that point of reference, or coming up with let's say with a new launch, and you have someone to bounce back with. And then from these people that you actually network with can be your mentors, your coaches, your day-to-day person to go to. And I think it is so beneficial because it just makes you stronger in what you do, and it lands you places. So I think this is how I started, right? So I said I was very lucky to travel, and I was very lucky to experience new markets, new trends, new brands, and always meeting new people. And my only objective was always to learn, to take in as much as I can, to meet as many people as I can, because sometimes you just go for a business dinner and you found out how other people started, and it triggers an idea for something that you can do. And this is so important. And then I think also from a job aspect, the networking with the recruiters is very important, because if you're planning to land yourself a job or change a job, or whatever it may be, I think of course establishing a good rapport with the recruiters is also very good. But I am also a very strong believer that when you are very passionate and very determined in what you do, opportunities also come to you as well. You just have to be open to them. So unless you're out there mingling and going about and trying to discover, and I've contacted people to do internships, to just spend a week in another store, or we would be opening a new brand, and I'd be like, okay, just out of my free time, can I spend a weekend in the store? And it was just for me to learn and understand, and how is the customer shopping, and what's the behavior, and just need to really be open to people, and to talk, and to conversate, and to make contacts, because at the end of the day, you don't know what the future holds. You don't know what opportunities may come across. And I strongly believe that the people that I have been very blessed to meet in my life, and I still talk to today, and I still go to, and it's like, oh, I think I'm going to do this, or this is my idea, and they're always of help and encouragement, and it just helps you to flourish as well.
A philosophy that I've lived by, and sort of that aligns with networking, I'm sure you would agree with it as well, is like, for you to succeed, work harder and be nicer than everyone else. Like, just be nice to everyone, and that's a very clear way to success. So yeah,
it's a first impression, right? So it's like whenever you're gonna meet someone, or whenever you're gonna go for an interview, or whenever you're gonna go for a first meeting, it's first impressions, right? So by nature, I'm a very happy and bubbly person. I'm a very passionate person, and it is also very good to portray your characteristics, right? So, and that is also the magic of networking, because from those few minutes that you're going to meet someone, you're going to leave your first impressions with that someone. You never know what's going to happen tomorrow, right? So maybe there is a new opportunity coming up, or maybe the conversation that you're leading with this person might actually lead you to another trail of thought, or another opportunity. But I really do encourage, when you come out of university and you're still a little bit green in experience, and you're still a little bit shy of the world, I really encourage to get yourself out there, even if it is just internships, or whatever you can get, whatever you can learn, whatever, even if you want to go into retail and you study consumer behavior, so you just literally sit in a mall, in a coffee shop, and just observe how people shop. Whatever you want to achieve in life, it always has to start with you putting yourself out there, you opening up your own opportunities, and networking will be also a part of this.
I'm assuming, obviously, the fact that you're sitting here, I can assume that you're always open to help, and always open to connect with people, whether it's small or big. So what would you recommend to a student who wants to contact you, or someone along your level of expertise?
I think, if you don't ask, you don't gain anyway. So I think it's always good, whether it's me or anyone else in the industry that you're interested in. I think by dropping a mail or by dropping a message on LinkedIn, there's no harm at all. I mean, there is a level of persistence, right, as well, to actually get to where you want to be. And I am definitely one of those students who graduated and I was hungry and ready to go, you know. So persistence is key. You just need to be open that not everybody's going to reply, or not everybody is just going to give the time. But personally, as much as I can, I do answer most of my messages on LinkedIn. I try to help out as much as I can, because, you know, if someone didn't give me that opportunity, I wouldn't be here today. So I feel that I owe it out there too, that if I could help someone get to where they need to be, why not?
What characteristics of a younger employee, you know, of a fresh employee, do you think is the most valuable? Like, you see someone and you're like, you see these characteristics in them and you're like, I know that this person is going to be successful. I know I can trust this person. I know this person is going somewhere. You know, I'm talking about the topics of, like, when you look at their CV, when you see them in person, when you interview them, what are the characteristics that you expect in someone? And when you see that, you're like, this is the person.
Okay, so a few elements, because you've touched on 3 different topics. So I think first things first, you know, you start with the CV. So whenever I am interviewing for a new role, first things first, we look at the CV, and then there are a few things there that can already tell the recruiter so much. So first we start with grammar and structure. I emphasize and cannot even emphasize enough that you run a spell check, because as soon as there are spelling mistakes on your CV, and yes, it might sound a little bit, you know, off for us, and I wouldn't have spelling mistakes, you would be surprised. That is already an indicator for detail. So in terms of grammar, using the right English words. I know that sometimes, you know, our English is not our main language, so having a good translator is really important, because it can shift the whole meaning of what you're trying to say. Having structure, making it clear and simple. It doesn't need to be a 6-pager, because a recruiter will never go through 6 pages of a CV. I always say a page and a half maximum, short and precise. And that is already giving me your first impression, right? So if I see something that is neat, clean, easy to read, spot on, no spelling mistakes, to me, it's already telling me so much about your characteristic itself, that you are a very organized person, that you are a very sharp person, that you have eye for detail, that you're communicating well. So just a piece of paper can say actually so much. And it is also your trademark, right? You are actually putting yourself out there on an A4 sheet. So you only have one chance, guys. So really get it right. Also, when it is such a competitive world and you have, you know, 1,000 applicants for just one job. So it is very, very important that you express yourself as well as you can on that sheet of paper, because it is going to land you to your next stage. Also, another small note is always make sure that you get the company name right of which job you're applying for. So I also sometimes receive CVs when the company name is not correct, and that is a big no-no. And then, as you said, going into your interviews. So when we go into interviews, for me, sometimes it is not just the experience. So you can meet a candidate, you know, who has, you know, 20 years of experience and so much good work on his portfolio or her portfolio. But to me, it first starts with confidence. You know, if you cannot express yourself and sell yourself during an interview, I would be one that tends to lose focus. Reason being is, you know, you have 30 minutes of networking and you should really make use of them. You know, you should show your energy and your passion and your confidence, and why should you be chosen. So if you are going to come to me and sit for an interview and just read out what you've just have on your CV, I can pretty much read that too, right? So this is your opportunity to gain these 30 minutes, and you can talk and present yourself things that you can't actually read on paper. So exactly like we're saying, you know, energy and passion and determination and what you plan to do. And, you know, this is so important. So I think that would be the first thing, to break the ice, put your confidence in there, show that you are really, in for this. I can also understand that it can be super nervous, super nerve-wracking actually, just coming out of university, you're applying for jobs, you don't have too many experiences interviewing. So I have 2 tips here. It is always very, very helpful to actually walk around or do some exercise before an interview. So I remember before my interview days, I would actually be half an hour early before I need to go, never be late, super important. I used to go half an hour before. I would circle around, move my fists, and I say, okay, I got this, positive vibes, super important. And then it also helps if you rehearse. So I know it's a bit funny, but I actually do rehearse. And you have your job description, what you applied for, rehearse, make some points, if you're driving, if you have 5 minutes before going to bed, just think about that job description, how you're going to sell yourself, what you're going to do, and this only helps you to be prepared. Once you're prepared, that confidence comes. So it's all, like tying up together. And I think it is super, super important that you research the company and the brand or whatever you're applying for, because again, it boosts confidence when you know what you're talking about. When you don't know what you're talking about, you start losing that momentum, you start stammering, and then you start getting, very nervous. So I think it is super, super important to be prepared, because once you're prepared, yourself will come out automatically. And always dress appropriately, very important. So whatever job you're applying, it doesn't require a suit. So sometimes it is very important to know what kind of job you're applying for and what you should be wearing, because of course, your what you wear is part of who you are and what you're going to present to the interviewer. So I think it is very good that it comes in one complete package. And then I think in terms of what to expect, I think what I would definitely expect to see personally is someone who is super well-rounded. So someone who just walks in with a big smile, although we're wearing masks now, so we need to learn how to smile, which is very important. Who brings energy, who's super passionate about what they do. And as I always say, even to my team, sometimes it is really not about the experience. Sometimes I would just interview someone and be like, okay, this person really has it. Why? Because we went through a floor walk and he spotted things that I didn't even see. Or, we were having a conversation and it was so easy to communicate and so easy to have just a chat that this would be a great communicator. He would be very good in the team. And also when you are at the final stage of interviewing, the interviewer itself, whether it would be the manager of the team or the head of department, would actually assess if this person can fit in the team, if the mindset is the same, if the energy is the same. So I think it is super, super important to be yourself. Don't try to be anyone else. If you're nervous, it's okay to say, I'm a little bit nervous today. It's good to have a little bit of a breather, and be like, okay, I just need 2 minutes to put myself together with a smile, and the interviewer would actually, understand, because it is a nerve-wracking process in the end. So, but I think, definitely the confidence, the passion, and being yourself. I think the truer you are, and the more honest and humble you are, the more I feel chances you have to get to where you are, because people can read you, right? And this is, again, we go back to what we were talking about earlier. I cannot teach passion. I cannot teach determination. I cannot teach, someone to be well-rounded or to bring energy, or these are all characteristics within. I can pretty much teach you the skill, but the characteristics I cannot teach. So take that shot and make it worthwhile.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. That was very, very insightful. I do want to ask a small follow-up question to that on the dressing sense. Now, I personally, I'm always dressed fabulous, so that's no problem. But this is for a friend. It's totally not for me. It's for a friend I have who dresses awfully. What would be an ideal? Like, just in your situation, I know it's different for every industry, but in your industry, where marketing comes in and your design comes in, what do you think? What kind of clothing would you expect, and do you think is professional?
The only thing I would say is dress appropriate to what you're interviewing for. So hypothetically, if I am recruiting for a visual merchandising associate, which is a person on ground, which is a person who would be moving stock all around, and it's a person who requires a lot of energy and a lot of physical movement, and you come for an interview with a suit, I would be questioning a little bit if you actually are suited for the interview.
Pun intended. I saw what you did there.
But again, you cannot judge over what people wear. So, I am a person who is definitely non-judgmental. So I will definitely give a fair opportunity to everyone. But, you never know how it may be perceived.
Yeah.
So let's say, if you are going for an interview for the fashion industry, you can still, be suited and booted, but you can do it with, an oversized blazer and a skinny pants and a nice pair of heels, and, so you can still do it. You can still do the formal look, let's say, or the corporate look, but you can adapt it and style it to two important factors: yourself and what you're interviewing for. This is what makes me happy and what makes me comfortable. As long as it is appropriate, why not? I think we are in 2021 and the world has changed, and now the new trend is actually joggers all the way around. Yeah. Don't wear joggers, but but I think it is more about the person, and it is more about what the person brings to the table. But I think first impressions, it is super important. So if you feel that yellow is going to make you happy today, then add a touch of yellow. Why not?
The reason why I asked this question is because it is such a much more complicated topic than it was maybe 30-40 years ago. That's why I asked that question. All right, so my final question, and it is very, very it's related to you now, and maybe you might get a call tomorrow because of this. How would you recommend someone enter your industry? Not necessarily work with you, but maybe if that's an advice you can give as well. But someone who can get into visual merchandising, someone who's interested in it, someone who wants to learn more about it, how would you recommend them to go about it?
Very interesting question. I sometimes ask the question myself, how I ended up here. But I honestly think that visual merchandising is getting the recognition that it really deserves. I mean, 20 years back, it was still a very, small little department that didn't have as much function. And now, as we more understand that the customer doesn't just come and shop anymore, that the customer actually needs an experience and a reason to come to the store, and how do you generate traffic, how do you make a beautiful window, how do you entice the customer to come in the store, how am I going to create that traffic for the salespeople to actually sell. So it is so much more complex now, that I would say, first things first, if you would be interested in my field, it is very important to understand what visual merchandising is all about. So sometimes you are still under the impression it's like, oh yeah, those people that make the store look pretty, like a 5-year-old would think. But it is so much more complex, and you have to study where your shipments are and when the stock is landing, and do a plan, and how is everything going to sit together, and when you're going to organize your team to change the store so you don't disturb the trade, and designing windows, and what are we going to talk about, and so it is so complex, and there is so many things that are involved in visual merchandising. So I think that's the first aspect, really understanding what it is all about. And it is super fun. It is an amazing role. And then I would say that it is very important to remain creative and remain remain on point. You know, so one of my daily tasks, I would say, is half an hour a day. I research what is happening in the world, what is happening in the fashion world and the retail world, who's coming up with the latest product, the latest team, latest launch, latest store design. And again, you know, the role itself requires a lot of passion and a lot of determination, a lot of creativity, a lot of eye for detail. So, you know, you need to keep your brain switched on all the time and updated all the time. I think that definitely keeps you on point and successful in what you do, in anything that you do, really. I think you should really be well-rounded what is happening around you and in the market. I do a lot of research, I do a lot of comp shopping, where basically I visit our competitors and I understand what everyone is doing and learn from it. You know, this is not just, you know, trying to understand what your competition is doing so then you can go back, and it's actually, you know, about learning how other people are launching the same thing you're launching, a new season, a new trend, you know, and how are different people have different mindsets and different ideas. So it is so cool that you can actually look around and learn. And I think you also really need to challenge yourself. So, you know, it is, you don't just stop at knowing what you're knowing and what you can deliver. You always need to continuously challenge yourself. Like, okay, today I did this amazing window. What am I going to do next? How is it going to be better? How am I going to get a better return on investment? How am I going to create more traffic? And then you just continue challenge yourself to actually, you know, get to more and more success. My last point, because I can really go on forever. As you can see, this is really a passion of mine, what I do. But, you know, I always say, love what you do and you never have to work a day in your life. And honestly, hand on heart, this is really how I feel. I am so passionate about my industry and what I do that I would never even dream to do anything else. So I think it's also part of the success to actually enjoy so much what you do, because really, guys, you know, we spend so much time at work that it is not just, you know, going to work and getting a paycheck. You know, it's not just a transition of time and service. It is actually emotional return and how much you invest in it and how much that success makes you proud of yourself. So I think it is super, super important to really, you know, have that well-rounded environment. But I think the final point to visual merchandising is always the same for me. You have to start from sales. You really need to understand how the customer shops, what the customer wants. So I think a background in sales, commerciality aspect would really help. So even if you can't get into a sales role, I would refer to internships. I think this really, really, really helps. So I've done a zillion and one internships when I was younger. And I think it is super important because no one can teach you consumer behavior. I mean, you can study it, you can think it, but every single store, every single brand, every single unit point, service, even not product, has its own way around customer experience. So what better way than to actually do an internship and actually see hands-on how the customer reacts. And only then, when you actually understand what the customer wants, then you can really build on it, and then you can be a really good commercial success story.
I just wanted to touch on a point at the end, which is about how you have to love the work that you do. And you don't have to tell me. I can see how passionate and how really, I mean, like just hearing you talk about it, I can be like, man, that's what you aspire to do, right? Like, be able to talk about your work the way that you talk about your work, right? That's a dream. I've always been personally of the note that, hey, the only way to get good at what you do is if you do it a lot. And how can you do something a lot if you don't love what you do?
Very true.
I always advise, whether it's my nephew, whether it's my little cousins, or any other person who ever comes up and asks me about it, ask me about why I am in media, I always tell them, when you get good at what you do, you're gonna make money. So just make sure you like what you do. Would you like to add anything to that last point about how much loving your job is so important when it comes to just your overall health, overall mental health, overall like life?
Totally. I think that's a good point. So I honestly think that, loving what you do, whatever you decide to do, it is not just a monetary return, it is also a sense of well-being, and it is also a sense of well-roundedness. So, it all starts with, again, spending a good 10 hours a day with commuting and, your actual work and so on and so forth, which is even more than 1/3 a day that you're actually dedicating to work. So it needs to definitely give you a sense of well-being, a sense of satisfaction, a sense of calmness, a sense of well-roundedness, which again, it is so hard to achieve, especially in a very complex world that we live in, where a pandemic is still going on. So I think it is super important, one day at a time, one challenge at a time. Try to remain focused. I often find myself in situations where I actually even take pause for 5 minutes, and if I just can't come back to something yet, I don't. I think it's always very good to pause, take 5 minutes, and then come back to what you are doing. It is definitely a fast world, and it is definitely changing 60 times much faster now than it was before. So I think, to remain passionate and to remain so much in love with what you do, you also need to be kind to yourself, and you also need to pace yourself.
Yeah.
So of course, everybody goes through times where it's like, oh, I can't do it anymore, I can't take it anymore, which is also a part of life. But then you wake up the next morning, it's like, oh, what I was saying, I love what I do. And you go back to work with a smile. I honestly say that if you wake up in the morning and you don't smile to go to work, this is when you need to probably change something. So it doesn't mean that you change your role, but sometimes it's also important to speak up, to talk to your line manager why it's not working, or why you don't have this emotional return, or what is your plan. I think it is super, super important to always be transparent and be open. I honestly think that this is also why I managed to get to where I am today. I think it is very, very important to be expressive, and how you can actually be so comfortable to speak up with your peers and not, try to carry the world on your shoulders till you collapse, because ultimately it's going to lead you to end that career, which you never even gave it a chance. People are there to help you, Most firms nowadays have a super human capital or human resources department. There are people that are there to help. So I think it's also very good to make use of these departments, because they are so informative and so helpful. And I think it is, with colleagues and peers and everybody sticking as a family, I think it is definitely helpful.
Yeah.
Ultimately you also need to go home and be able to and say, okay, my day is done now, I can focus on my personal things. So I think a good work-life balance. And I think my last note to close this wonderful conversation we've had is always find time for yourself. So it is something that we do not, unfortunately, do much anymore. As we grow up, we get into families and children and, so on and so forth. So I think it is super imperative to remain connected to who you are, whether it's that, my latest thing is cycling. So I just go out there and cycle at least 3 to 4 times a week. Or whether you enjoy grocery shopping and then putting it in the cupboard, or whether it is meeting a friend for a coffee. I think it is super, super important to dedicate a little bit time for yourself every week, because I think that is part of the process. You go to work, you have a good energy at work, you go home, you have a good energy at work, you dedicate some time to yourself, and it's a circle, right? If you're happy at home and with your personal life, then you're also happy at work as well. So I think maybe stepping a little bit aside from the whole conversation we're talking about, but I think well-being is so important.
We'll have to disagree with you there. I don't think this is stepping aside from the conversation we were having.
Okay.
I think this is the foundation of everything else that we're doing. If you can't be happy, be able to sustain the lifestyle of whatever the hustle culture or just working hard, whatever you want to call it, if you can't sustain it, then there's no point in even trying to get there. Thank you so much, Marilyn. Best of luck in the future, and hopefully you have the same amount of success, even more so success in the long life that you have left to live.
Thank you so much. I also wish you guys all the best into entering the working world. I remain available, so if there is any questions that you would like to pass on after this interview, I'm more than happy to answer by email. And look ahead to a brighter future. You're still so young. You have a whole lifetime ahead of you.
I'm assuming you're 24.
I'm 24.
Yeah.
In a retail career of 20 years. I don't think so.
You started working when you were 4, wasn't that? I thought that was okay. This is news
But
to me.
thank you. I will take the 24.